Welcome to Inspire and Lead podcast. I'm Nagam Alsamari. In today's episode, we talk about Toastmasters. Hello, and welcome to Inspire and Lead podcast, formerly known as Learnamentary. If you have listened to episodes in Learnamentary in the past, you have heard my voice talk about things like team working or experience from change and things like that, where we talk about different things that help us, motivate us, inspire us to learn, become lifelong learners, continue growing, and become leaders. And you've heard my voice in the past in Learnamentary, and now you get to see the face behind the voice. Here we go. And today's podcast in Inspire and Lead is all about Toastmasters. Toastmasters International is a public speaking organization that helps, I joined because of public speaking, but it's really a lot more than that. People join Toastmasters because they are inspired to grow their own selves in leadership and public speaking. A lot of people go because they start out wanting to actually become better speakers, and they end up getting so much more. I myself joined Toastmasters back in 2020. I believe it was 2020. During the shutdown, I was attending one of my EDD classes, doctoral education degree courses, and it was online, and it was a 3 and a 2-day long residency. They call it residency, where we had to do research and work in groups and present. You know how classes go. Typically they have some sort of presentation, and I consider myself as a good presenter. I have done presentations for high school, and I went to public speaking class in college, and I worked hard on myself. I'm a former teacher, so I project my voice when I speak in public. I was a former principal as well, and so I had to deliver speeches in public to parents and family members attending events. And during that class, after the 5 complete days of work, research, and presentation, we in my group presented, and every other group presented, and the professor, whose name I do not recall anymore, listened to all of us presenting, and at the end, this is what he had to say, and this is the end of class. He actually waited until the very last few minutes to say this. He went and just berated all of us and said how terrible we all were. And I don't honestly remember all the words. I just remember they were downgrading, demeaning, and very rude. And I felt very small and very, very incapable of presenting a simple project in the class. And in his on and on, speech that went on for about 15 minutes, it felt a lot longer at the time, but I think it was just 15 minutes. He mentioned the words Toastmaster. I think he was talking about himself and how he worked on himself and he was going to Toastmasters. And so I don't remember if anyone responded. I did not respond to him, nor did I feel the need to do that. What I did after I closed my laptop, I opened it back up. I started researching, put in Google Toastmasters, and Toastmasters International came up on the website. I started looking into it, and that's when I joined. I really want others to learn more about Toastmasters and to find out what it is, what it does. I started with a club called Credible Communicators. It was all virtual, and they were some of the friendliest people I have ever met. And I received so much valuable feedback from them. Every time I give a speech, every time I evaluate, every time something comes out of my mouth, I get they don't just, they're not yes people. They don't just tell you you're doing great. They give you great feedback. And I work on it, I come back, I do better. I work on it, I come back, I do better. And I found so much value from that club. But I was fortunate enough to find the Visionary Virtual Voices, which is an online club. Also great people, very fun, friendly, and amazing characters that it just the first time I joined, I felt like I knew them for a long time. And also taken a leap to challenge myself even more and joined the international speech contest. And I don't remember which year. It might have been 2021. And I actually won first place in my area, it was a great motivator for me, and it boosted me up even more. I ended up losing to another great speaker later on as I went up to face more competitors. Which is not a loss to me at all, because every time I listen to somebody speak, I learn so much from them, and I work on myself. I just started working on starting my own club that meets in person, because I love having the online opportunity, because number one, it's convenient, 100% convenient, because you can open up your laptop anywhere and be able to attend a meeting. Number two, you get to work on your public speaking skills, your leadership skills online in a virtual setting, which everybody needs at this time, because we're still virtual. People are still using this technology and capability in the workplace. So this is a needed skill. The only thing that is lacking is the feeling that I need to actually practice those skills in person. And so I am working on opening an in-person club, and we are in the process, and we are actually having our very first meeting in January. I'm very excited about that. I have a group of people who are very interested and very much wanting to work on their public speaking skills. And so I cannot wait to see everybody there in person, and to actually practice our public speaking, our gestures, our stands. There's so much more you could practice with Toastmasters, and it's not just how you speak, getting rid of the filler words, but also how you stand, your body language, your eye contact with others. And then these are some of the things that are a little bit harder to practice when you are in a virtual setting. And that is why the in-person would help with with all of these other things that you have to practice and work on. And so Toastmaster has been a life-changing experience for me. It definitely gave me the opportunity to practice a lot, doing my speeches, all the gestures and body language and everything I talked about. I also found that it is a great confidence booster. I felt so much more confident going into meetings, addressing situations, talking to other people, because, when you get all this feedback, great feedback, and you learn from it and you grow, you become better. That's what happens. You become better. And so it actually boosts confidence. And that is why Toastmasters is so important. And this is why I chose to do this episode about Toastmasters. And you are going to hear from other Toastmaster members about Toastmasters. They're going to talk about some of the history of Toastmasters, some speech participation, and other exciting information about Toastmasters. So stay tuned. We begin our Toastmasters journey with Kim Kensler Prager. Kim has been a Toastmaster for 13 years and belongs to 3 Toastmasters clubs. She's working on her Distinguished Toastmaster Award and helping to build clubs in Ohio and Michigan. I talked to Kim to try to learn a little bit more about the history of Toastmasters. You started with them 13 years ago. I think I'm talking to the right person. So what can you tell us about Toastmasters history?
Toastmasters started out in 1924 with a gentleman by the name of Ralph Smedley. And he saw the need for men to learn to be better speakers. And it started out in a YMCA in Englewood, Colorado. And it eventually grew. They incorporated in 1932.
Wow.
And they eventually, kept growing. They didn't allow women until 1973.
Goodness.
Yeah. And I think the first female international president was somewhere in the 80s. Currently today, they have 14,200 clubs with 270,000 members. And they're
Wow.
all over the world, and they have countries almost on, or clubs in every continent. In fact, District 28, which we are a part of, is actually sponsored and has in their club Tunis Toastmasters, which is actually in Tunisia.
Oh wow, amazing. And
And
do they hold the club in Arabic or English in Tunisia? Do you know?
probably both. I've never asked, but last year in the international speech contest, we had contestants from Tunisia participating in English. So
Wow, that's super amazing. And I know that they also in Tunisia they have a third language. They speak French. So who knows? Maybe they have it in all three languages. This is amazing. I was just I'm mesmerized by how many locations there are, and I'll tell you, I am happy that I have joined in recent years where I am able to join as a woman and participate in Toastmasters. You belong to three clubs. Which clubs are they?
I belong to Visionary Virtual Voices, which is a online club that meets Sunday nights. I am Talking Arrowheads, which is a noontime lunch club, and we're in the process of rebuilding. We had 8 members and lost half of them,
Mm.
but the 4 officers are still there, and we're committed to rebuilding, and we're going to go online only.
Mm.
And the problem was we'd find a place and then we'd lose it. They met for 7 years at Merritt's. Merritt's was a call center, which I worked at.
Mhm.
So I got the conference room. But when they closed, there went that due to COVID. And then we had another place, and then we lost a lot of our members this summer. And then the third one I have belonged to is an advanced club called Advanced Articulators. And that meets hybrid, both in person at a church and online, because we have members in Ohio, Michigan, and California.
Wow. Isn't this great that Toastmasters is able to meet in person and on Zoom and hybrid to meet the needs of people? I mean,
Yeah,
isn't this great?
it's absolutely great.
I know that question, Kim, so my membership started during COVID. So I don't know if was it COVID that forced some clubs to go virtual, or was that capability available before?
No, it was COVID that forced us to learn new skills.
Wow.
And some clubs didn't survive it. I actually belong to another club called Trendsetters, who we didn't make it
Hmm.
because the members did not want to go online.
Okay. Wow. So we'd have to, people had to learn the new skills and be able to get online and just survive and continue, which is, I mean, great. A lot of businesses did that, and a lot of schools and, groups did that. So that
Yeah,
capabilities is great. But it's a bit different though, isn't it? Meeting in person versus online. What do you think is the biggest difference from someone who's been in Toastmaster for a long time, and you've seen the transition from in person to virtual? What are some of the big differences that you saw?
the big difference is it's easier to when you're in person, you can see the whole body, you can see all the body languages and the gestures. And the big challenge is going to be for the international speech contest. We tell people they need to stand because they need to see all of you. But also it's working on the eye contact and the gestures and being able to speak right. I mean, I went through several microphones, as you know. So it's that, but it's also having the confidence that whether you're online or in front of people, that you can still rock it out with a speech.
That's true. And especially, I think, the being online and holding a meeting online is needed. So it's good that some people get to practice their speeches online, because a lot of businesses still use the online capabilities and meet online, and some people have to deliver a meeting online. And so if they don't have the confidence to do this, or they need some practice, there you go. Toastmaster does that. So it's still needed, even though it's way past COVID. I think it's good to have as well.
Yes.
So Kim, one last question. What is, and I know it's 13 years. You probably have seen changes in Toastmasters over the years. I mean, other than the big obvious going from in person to online to the hybrid. Is there something else that you've seen, that you've experienced, that has changed in
The quality of people coming in, it seems like they're stronger, more motivated. And also the natural life cycle of clubs, clubs go and then they ebb, and then you have to build them back up again. But I know the other thing is even if you have a large club, there's only a few people that do the work and that are consistently showing up.
Okay. Is it life? I mean, life demand,
yes.
or okay.
Life demands. I mean,
yeah.
We have 24 members at Advanced Articulators. Last week we had 13, but 3 of them were guests. Actually, yeah, 3 guests. So
that's really not bad though. That's
yeah.
pretty good. It's pretty good attendance. So I know I said that was the last question, but I have a last question for you.
No, I'll answer as many last questions as you want.
Oh my goodness. I love talking to you, Kim. You have so much information about Toastmasters, and I just love listening to your stories. But I do. This is the last question. What 5 words describe your experience with Toastmasters?
Okay. Stimulating. Stimulates the mind. Pivoting. You have to pivot, and you might go in with one idea for the meeting and it pivots into a business meeting. Exciting. There's always excitement to Toastmasters, especially when I went to the international convention in Windsor, Ontario. That was just fabulous.
Wow.
Learning I'm always learning and fun.
Amazing 5 words. Thank you so much for answering all my last questions. Next up, you'll hear from Emily Bauman, who's been with Toastmasters since 2019. She's currently a member of the Westland Easy Talkers Toastmasters Club. She participated in 2 international speech competitions, served as president, and is currently serving as an area director. Outside of Toastmasters, Emily owns a leadership coaching firm and recently was elected to Westland City Council. She remains active in her community and desires for everyone to know their own core values and how they can be the best person they can be. That is a lot of hats to wear, Emily. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. And so talking about Toastmasters today, what first attracted you to be a Toastmasters International member?
I first heard of Toastmasters actually years ago when I was working for a corporate company. But at the time, I thought it was just for executives. So I really just heard about it, set it aside, wasn't for me. Then as I was getting my own coaching firm going, and I've done a ton of speaking. Since then, I've done a ton of speaking. I've done trainings. I've done all sorts of opportunities to actually be on stage, even in plays and different things. But still never really thought about Toastmasters. Then when I started working on my own with my own business, I came across someone who actually had gone to Toastmasters and had actually gotten rid of a stutter. And he invited me to Toastmasters. Sadly, I never went. And he passed away before I actually was able to go with him to his Toastmasters. Then I connected with a mentor who attributed her success at her business to Toastmasters. And I was like, all right, tap, 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 tap. I think I've had enough little encouragements. So I reached out in 2019 to Toastmasters, to the Westland Easy Talkers. And I remained a guest actually for almost 6 months before I actually joined as a member. So that's really, I know it's a long answer to that, but it's really, it's interesting how years and years and years of hearing about something and then finally doing it has been really good for me.
Wow, what a story. And, I know you said it's a long story, but everybody has their own reason for joining. And listening to other people's stories is really what helps get others to know about Toastmasters and its importance, because it has done a lot. And you already mentioned 2 people already whose life has been impacted both by Toastmasters. So it's really important to share those stories. Thank you for that. And so if somebody is thinking, let's say, about joining Toastmaster or was on the verge, what advice would you give them?
Well, my best advice would be just join. There's an element. So one of the things I did miss in that is what compelled me actually to join when I did was I had been in a car accident and was having some doubts and fears of myself and different things. And I was actually diagnosed with PTSD during that time as well. And I went out and I was like, I need to get back to where I was. And I knew that I felt that Toastmasters would help me there. That practice of being able to be in front of people and speaking and doing things that I know that I could do well and getting better at it was a big part of it. So I remind people that it's not just about public speaking. Although I also remind people that every time they open their mouth to speak to another person, it's public speaking. So if they remember that it's just a conversation and that's all they're really having, and they're learning how to have it in a better way that's more effective, more impactful, and they are actually being able to hear areas where they need to work on to be stronger in that ability to actually speak with others, they need to go to Toastmasters. So it really is just basic communication in a way that's more effective and gives them the ability to actually reach what they want to say in a more distinct and effective way.
Wow, I think you put it very simply for others who are on the verge. But some might think that, well, I don't really have the time. I'm looking at my calendar, I have all these things. And now looking at your bio, already have so many hats. How do you do it? Are you able to find time to stay in connection with your Toastmasters club and still get those benefits?
Like anything, I mean, there is that opportunity. There's going to be the ebb and flow, and that's the beauty of Toastmasters, I think, is that it actually, you can pick it back up and you can get back in it. Once you start, though, and how do I say this? It gets in you. So you never leave it. And anyone who's been in Toastmasters, from what I've heard, and that this is not just me. This is not just a me thing. But you get in there, you start working on it, you start improving yourself, you start seeing the results, you start realizing that you've got the ability. You just need to strengthen it and hone it, and maybe pull up different topics. It's there, and you can always just come back and forth with it and go deeper. And ultimately, that's actually why the Pathways training is so good, because I know there's a lot of people that aren't really excited about being online. They're with an old legacy program. And I did you ever get on the legacy program, or were you always on Pathways?
No, I'm not familiar with the legacy program.
Okay, that was the old books. I didn't either. I was always in Pathways. But
Okay.
what I understand is, and I remind people, is that it's always there. Even though it's internet, it's still always there. You can just go and get on, and you can redo it. And it actually, I like the Pathways program, and I really encourage people who haven't stepped into it as well as they could to really get into it, because the programming is just really great, and it really does help you become better. And it's just, and then I'm going to lead into your other question, I think, but
Sure.
because I know how I use it in life is ultimately why I keep coming back to Toastmasters. If I wasn't using it in everything that I do, whether it's a communication with my husband or my sister or friend, it wouldn't be as strong as it is for me. But even what I like about it is that I'm quick to see, ooh, I didn't communicate very well. I can draw back onto my Toastmasters strength and then redo it and have a better communication. So even if I mess it up, I'm much more aware of where and how I messed it up. And it's not just us and thous and so's and all of that, although those are really important, and I'm glad we point those out. There's other pieces. There's how do you say something in a tight amount of space of time and actually still get your message across. And every communication, and I like to have the redos.
And I attest to what you were saying about being a part of it. I mean, for me, I felt some sort of an addiction coming back, because it had, I wanted that feedback. It was so important to me that, if I had, let's say, a public speech that I was preparing for, I wanted to see what my fellow Toastmasters thought of it before, or what kind of feedback they could give me on it before I actually presented it to the the masses that I was working with. And so I definitely came back for that reason.
Right. That's a safe space. That's so huge.
Yeah. And you have this platform where you could, put down your ideas, and people were so gracious enough to listen to you and, give you with feedback, not, like you said, not just the ahs and ums, but also maybe the language you're using, maybe the idea itself needed some honing. So there were so many different ways that it was useful. Now, how else have you used the skills you've learned from Toastmasters? I know you mentioned a few. Can you think of other ways that you feel like without maybe having been a part of Toastmasters, you wouldn't have been able to do 1, 2, or 3?
Well, certainly running as a candidate and having to do what they call stump speeches constantly. So being able to prepare a speech that I could speak within, whether I'm given 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, being able to have the right things and say that, and then be able to say that clearly and have people actually be able to understand what I'm saying. There's all of that. And just not having a problem of being called in a second, come speak. And now that I've actually won my election, I will be having comments every single time I'm on city council meetings. And I want to make sure that I'm communicating well to the community. And so it's a whole different platform of who I'm talking to and how. But the confidence of knowing that I can transition regardless of who the audience is and who I'm speaking to. That confidence is what, if I had not started Toastmasters in 2019 and then to continue to practice and practice and practice and practice and getting comfortable and being able to know that I can transition to any audience and be able to say what I need to say. And I'm getting still getting positive feedback with it, which is awesome.
That's awesome. And finally, Emily, I have one last question for you. What are 5 words that describe your experience with Toastmasters?
The 5 words I think of is 1, competition. And I'm going to clarify. In 2019, when I heard you could compete in speeches, I was really excited about that. And one of the things I like to tell people is, because this is what I teach even in my leadership, is that I don't compete with anyone else. I never compete with anyone else. I only compete with myself, which adds to one of my other words, which is improvement. Because if I'm not competing with myself, then how do I know that today I'm better than I was yesterday? So the second word is improvement. So there's competition, which I love because I'm always improving and then improving, plus excellence. Excellence is not perfection, but if you are always striving for excellence and trying to get better, you will start hearing your own ahs and ums. At first you don't. And when someone comes and tells you, you've had 10 ahs, what? I didn't hear them. And then you start hearing them. That's part of that excellence. All of a sudden, the excellence bar for yourself starts rising, and it's beautiful. The friendship, the amount of friendships that I've gotten with Toastmasters that I know that I can have any conversation with on any topic, even when we don't agree, is huge. And then the consistency. When you are going to your meetings on a regular basis, whether they're once a month, twice a month, every other week, weekly, that consistency is one of the things that is really important. And I know when you step out of that, you're going to see it. And then when you get back into it, you're going to also see the improvement and come back. So those are the 5 words.
Very powerful, and they all connect. Thank you so much. Emily, I want to hear one last word of advice to people. Maybe those who have not heard of Toastmasters, what would you tell them?
Well, certainly don't wait 20 years like I did. If you hear about Toastmasters, get to a meeting, start being a guest. You don't have to, there is not an obligation to join right away. The encouragement is to come as a guest, come as often as you can, participate. And you will see that Toastmasters is something that everyone in any walk of life, any age as well, whether you're in college, we in our club, we have an 84-year-old gentleman who is retired. He's like, I don't need it, but he's like, this is such a big part of my life that I can't imagine not coming to my Toastmasters meeting. So it's like, don't wait and get started, because it's the amount of education you get and improvement you get to be better at speaking and just being a better person.
Mo Anand is another Toastmaster that you're going to hear all about. And one thing about Mo is he's an excellent speaker, and he wishes to one day publish his book. If you're listening to this podcast, be sure to encourage Mo. Leave him a comment, leave him a message, and tell him today is the day, Mo. Let's hear your stories published, and let's start reading your book. I am meeting with Mo Anand. Mo is another member of Toastmasters, and today we're talking about the International Speech Contest. But before we get there, I have to ask a couple of questions about Toastmasters. So Mo is, he has been with Toastmasters since 2017, and he has been working on improving his writing and speaking skills, public speaking skills. He would love to someday start writing and publishing, and I really hope that that day is soon, because he has great stories to tell. And presently, he's using everything he's learning from Toastmasters in IT at Orchards Children's Services. Welcome, Mo.
Thank you, Nagam.
So, Mo, before I ask you any questions about the speech contest, I wanted to know, you've been with Toastmasters since 2017. What first attracted you to Toastmasters?
So I first heard about Toastmasters I was reading a book about job hunting, just because I was at a point in my life where I wasn't really happy with the job that I had. So I was looking everywhere to just gain ideas for, you know, to improve myself and just to get a better position. And Toastmasters came up in one of these books, and it was like an idea, join a Toastmasters club. And I read a little blurb about it, but I didn't really think too much of it. And then a couple years later, all of a sudden, the name popped up in my head again. So I decided to look it up, and I saw that there was one in the area. And I reached out to Bill Moylan of Friends of Farmington Toastmasters Club. I believe I emailed him, and he stated something like, we're going to have one this Sunday. Why don't you come and be there? And I said, okay, I will. And I didn't go. I didn't go because I don't know, it was just one of those things I was nervous about. So I didn't actually go to the first meeting until probably a month or so later. And I just kind of popped in. Bill was already there, met him, sat down, and all of a sudden it was just for the next hour. I heard people talk, conversating, and I just felt so comfortable there. And from that point forward, I was a Toastmaster.
Wow. And you said you mentioned Friends of Farmington. That's the club you belong to?
Friends of Farmington is its original, or its former name. It is now called Visionary Virtual Voices.
Do you belong to any other clubs, or is that your home club?
That's my home club, and it is the only club I belong to right now. Yep.
Wow. So if someone is, let's say, kind of like your story and how you began nervous
Yep.
about getting into Toastmasters, or shy, or maybe, I don't know, some other reason, what would you tell them?
I would say to take that first leap and take that first step and just sit there. You don't have to say anything, because I think that's what a lot of people are nervous about. Well, what if they call on me? What if I do? No, you just sit there, and every Toastmasters club pretty much brings their guests in and tells them to just sit there and observe, and they'll find out through the course of one session that, wow, there's a lot of people like me. You're going to meet people from all backgrounds, people that move to the country later in life, people that, are not great speakers, or people that have had, stuttering issues, speech problems in their past. And you will feel comfortable. I promise you that anybody who sits there and observes, you will find yourself comfortable no matter what. But just take that first leap. That's what I would say.
Thanks for that, because I think a lot of people have that fear you described, is that they're afraid that they may be asked to give a speech on their first day. And I would be too if someone told me that by joining you actually have to say something. But I think if people knew that they can just observe and listen, and just be part of the group, just to make them feel comfortable, I think that's great advice. Thanks for that.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
let's talk about the speech contest. So there are multiple contests, correct?
There are, yes. This year they're concentrating on the international speech contest as well as a table topics contest. But they also have an evaluation speech contest, where all you have to do is evaluate somebody else's speech. But the international speech contest is the most prominent one, and it is the one that helps people improve the most.
Well, can you talk a little bit about that? What does it entail? How do you participate? What do you do when you participate?
Sure, yeah. So Toastmasters um, always announces the international speech contest well ahead of time. And what it is every club gets to send two members to the next level. From the club level, the next level would be an area level. From the area level, the next level would be division, and then district. So um, when you first hear about it, you'd always ask whoever's in charge of the club whether they're holding a club contest. Some do,
Mm.
some do not. Some automatically choose to move on to the next round.
Mm.
And what I always would say is once you have decided to enter that speech contest, practice, practice, practice. Just continue to practice whatever speech is in your head. Um, you have stories to tell that story.
Do you have to have a certain topic that you talk about, or is it open to whatever you want to speak about?
Yep, it's an open topic. Some people use, funny stories from their past. Some people use a really personal story from their past. Some people discuss, it varies. I've heard great stories about weddings. I've heard great stories about how somebody met their spouse. I've heard stories about father-son relationships. Um, and it can be a story from a childhood. I mean, it varies. One of the things I always recommend is go on to YouTube or online somewhere and just type in speech contest or type in
Mhm.
world championship of public speaking, and you will see lots of great funny emotional stories from other people.
Oh, that's great. What about the table topics contest? What is that all about?
Table topics, so everybody gets um, the same table topic, which is a 1 to 2 minute impromptu speech. So you'll be asked a question, and once you're asked that question, you just off of your cuff, 1 to 2 minutes, talk about it. It can be anything. I remember, when I was in uh, a speech contest, I had heard what the table topic was, and it was something about, if you don't have a cell phone on you and you have to look something up, what would you do? Something like that. And all of a sudden, people gave answers from just outrageous answers, but it was great. People love to hear what you have to say. So it's
Wow.
just, you don't have anything to practice for a table topic contest because you don't know the question ahead of time. So once you hear the question right there at the contest, just start talking.
Wow. And what their judges are looking for is your public speaking skills at the ready, basically, right? So
Yes. How
without
well,
knowing.
correct. Yeah. How well did you speak uh, uh, off the cuff? How well did come up with an answer? And if you couldn't come up with an answer, how well did you do in still providing some sort of outlet or funny answer to something that made the audience react in some way?
Mm. Wow. I think I need that kind of practice, Mo. I would love to do that.
I mean,
um,
it's a great way to do it.
yeah. So have you, I heard you say that you were in a contest before. Which one did you participate in?
Yeah, I was actually in the international speech contest. I've entered it a couple of times. The first time was I was a Toastmaster for in my third year in 2019. Um, and basically, I gave what was called an icebreaker speech, which was the very first speech I gave at my club level when I was first introduced to Toastmasters, which involved a
Mhm.
personal story about my childhood. Um, and, based on that, if anybody is going to join the international speech contest, I would always tell them to save their best story for now, to talk about something that um, might have happened to them recently, because I gave what was, in my opinion, my best story that first year, and then I had a very, very hard time coming up with something my second year because I was trying to beat that first story. So um, yeah, but yeah, it's just when you're thinking about a topic, it's for me, it's always something that the audience can one relate to, and some kind of message that you're trying to give the audience itself. because most of the speech contests, that is exactly the objective of the goal, because you're laying something out for other people to understand about you.
Yeah. What great advice. And really, if you enter the contest, whether you win or you don't win, you end up winning anyway, because you've had this practice. You've had, people listen to your stories, learn from you. So I think it's a great experience.
Yeah, I agree. It's, the first rule of, I think, all these speech contests is have fun. No matter what, I don't, for most people, I am fairly certain they're not going in it to so much to win it, but it's also just to share something about themselves, and also to meet other Toastmasters that have that same passion as they do. The one great thing about all these speech contests has been I've met other Toastmasters, and it's just been fun. And that's the biggest thing about these contests. Nobody should stress themselves out. You're not getting graded on it. There's nothing that, it's not going to be something that other people are going to, you know, downgrade you on. It's just something that you should do for yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all this information. I think it motivates people to hear not only do you get to go to the different kinds of clubs and practice your speech in the different ways, but you can get involved in these speeches in these international speech contests, the table topics contests. And today I learned about the evaluation contest. This is great opportunities for people to practice their learning and to actually have fun. Thanks for all of that. I have one final question for you, Mo.
Yes.
And I want you to think about your experience in Toastmasters overall, and tell me what 5 words define your experience in Toastmasters.
So first, I would say inspiration. I am inspired by other Toastmasters around me. So inspiration would be the first word. I would also say personal, because every single speech I've ever given has been something personal about me. I would also say futuristic, because I'm doing it to help improve myself for my future. And the last 2, I would say, one is communication, and that's communicating every part of me that I can. I have no issues wearing my emotions on my sleeve and letting people know my story. And so communicating that has always been a great way to do that. And finally, leadership. I think I never thought of myself as using it in any capacity as far as being a leader or doing things. But after Toastmasters, now I do see how it can help me in my professional life and becoming, a leader, whether it's at home, whether it's at work, whether it's out anywhere else. So those are the 5 words I would say would describe me. Excellent.
Thank you so much for all the information you shared tonight. Thanks for the 5 words. It's not easy to, be put on the spot and find 5 words that describe your experience, unless you really, really loved your experience, which obviously it shows in everything. And I gotta say, Mo, listening to you, there are very, very few filler words. It shows how much work you've put in from Toastmasters in the way you speak. So there you go. Awesome job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Great having you on tonight. And thank you so much for joining.
All right. Thank you, Dr.
This last story is inspirational. This story is of Brinda Narasimhan. She's a software professional and has been with Toastmasters since fall of 2019. She's a part of the Friends of Farmington Toastmasters Club, which recently changed its name to Visionary Virtual Voices. She served as President, Public Relations Officer, and she is currently the Vice President of Education. She worked on multiple pathways in Toastmasters, including presentation mastery, innovative planning, and she's currently on level 3 of visionary communication. This sounds like a lot, but this is not what's amazing and what's inspirational about this story. With all this amazing work, you have to listen to her story of how she joined.
I really didn't know much about Toastmasters until 2015, I would say. I had a cousin, so he was part of Toastmasters very actively. He has been doing a lot of speeches and getting a lot of trophies. He always give a pep talk to every individual in the family to join Toastmaster. But
Wow.
as usual, we are that crazy cousins. We didn't listen at first. And after which I moved to the state. So when I go in person to office, that's when the real challenge happened. So English was not my first language. It was my second language. I learned my education like until school level in my mother tongue. So it was really challenging, even though I had every subject in English back in my college days. I wasn't that exposed to the language as a whole. So that is when I thought, okay, I should start somewhere. So a couple of my friends were telling me about reading books that improves your vocabulary and watching movies or TV shows that give you confidence. I started doing that. As time went by, I was able to learn and I was able to write, listen, everything is good. But when it comes to talking, that is when the actual issue happened. So I remember what my cousin used to say. Then I started searching for clubs nearby since Friends of Farmington was very close at that time to where I live. I thought, okay, why not give it a try? I found the contact details. I was very shy to even call. So what I did was I picked up the email address. I sent out an email. So it went to Bill, who was president at that time. He replied back saying, you know what, we are having a meeting this Sunday. Why don't you come over as guest speaker? Just come and observe. If you like, you can continue. If not, that's fine. So I went there. It was a good crowd. I sat in a corner. I was little hesitant to go alone, so I took a friend of mine. She came with
Was
me.
that back when it was actually in person, right?
Yes, it was in person. Everyone came, and even I remember they had a projector. It happened in a church hall in the uh, you know a event hall in a church, and they had projectors, and Mo was presenting something at that day. I didn't talk to anyone. I introduced myself to Bill, and I sat in a corner. I went with my friend. She was kind of my companion because I don't want to go alone. I was there for whole session and I really liked it. So I thought, okay, let me give it a try. So I asked my friend, I'm gonna join. Do you wanna come? She said, no, I can't. So I had to take a really, really hard step there. Then I sent out an email to Bill. I told him, okay, I wanna come, but don't expect me to give speeches on first month or first day itself. I'm not going to do that. And Bill said, okay, one step at a time. We are not going to force you to do any massive or major speeches. We are not there yet. I understand. Let's start teeny tiny bit first. Why don't you give your icebreaker speech? That itself was a huge step for me, but somehow I survived and it went well. So I felt so comfortable with the crowd, and no one were being judgmental or making fun of me. They were very supportive, and even they helped me with lot of things like how to choose a pathway, what to prepare for that, and they were so honest about the feedback. That was constructive criticism, I would say, at end of my speeches when the evaluation happened. So it was so constructive. I was able to improve a lot. So this is my journey. So I know I started with innovative planning. The next thing I know, I completed that. I started presentation and I completed that. And now I'm in my third pathway, level 3. So it's kind of going well.
Wow. It's amazing to hear where you started. You were shy to even talk to someone that you ended up sending an email. But to see your progress, you've completed 2 levels and you're on level 3. No, you've completed 2 pathways and you are in your third pathway on level 3. That is amazing. And you have served as an officer multiple times. That is, I mean, to see your progress from where you started, from the English language learner that you were kind of shy to speak to people, and now you've made this progress. Do you attribute your progress to Toastmasters, or is it only Toastmasters, or something else, or a combination? What are your thoughts on that?
It's not just Toastmasters, I would say. I mean, I can deliberately see it has improved my day-to-day communication with my peers, or even if I go out, I generally choose self-checkout.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not doing that. If the line is short, then I'm like, okay, whatever it is, it's fine. I've come to that. And when I go for interviews, I get so nervous. I generally, even though I knew the subject very well and I can crack it, something was holding me back. So I would say whatever the work I'm doing, whatever I'm learning, it doesn't just end with Toastmasters. It is obviously helping me with my day-to-day work, and I'm able to progress in my career, I would say.
Yeah, that's amazing. And Brenda, I am a former ESL student myself. I learned the language here, and I went to school, to high school, but a lot of people told me the same things they told you, but I found that yes, you can learn to read and write, but when it comes time to have a conversation, you have to actually practice with someone who is more proficient than you, not someone like you or less than you. And so that's really how I was able to practice my English language more. So I kind of relate to your story a little bit there with the English language. And my next question is kind of what you also talked about, is how did outside of Toastmasters, how did your experience within Toastmaster help you? And you said that it kind of helped you with kind of getting rid of your shyness a little bit, working. Maybe you don't see it as a problem now when you have a conversation with someone and advance in your career. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Definitely. So, okay, starting from my day-to-day conversation, like as I told you, like I generally choose self-checkout. I never interact with any salesperson or anyone. And if I have to work with someone in the office, I prefer chat or email over an in-person conversation or a meeting. But what I didn't realize at that time was having an in person conversation that makes you understand well what you are trying to learn or understand at that point. And it eliminates lot of confusions, and people tend to read your text or your email in a different tone than
Mhm.
they actually see you in person and talk. And that sometimes has happened to me. And my cultural background and from where I am, even though I had my bachelor's and master's and everything was in English, I didn't learn how to actually converse. So when I type in something in a chat or in email, lot of times it gets misinterpreted like I'm being rude, or I'm just, being so sharp and stuffs like that. But when I talk in person, people were like, wow, is that really you? Were you that person chatting with me? You doesn't seem to be, yes. And then I realized, okay, fine, then I have to go talk to in person. That kinds of build that network, and also the bonding, and also people can actually see me for who I am. So that really helped me. And also I was just kind of postponing, like when I initially thought, okay, I should do a job switch back in 2018-19. But what really stopped me was I have to go in person, I have to take interview, and it is going to last easily for an hour, and it doesn't end in 1 or 2 rounds. It's going to be even more. So that was mainly holding me back, and I'm kind of staying in my comfort zone. I never really gave it a thought like I need to change myself, I have to come out of it. No, I did not realize. But after joining here and after I met Mo, Bill, and everyone in the club, I thought, okay, why not give it a try? I just slowly started, and Toastmasters really helped me for where I am today, to get where I am today. So yeah,
Amazing.
that's my story.
Amazing. And I have to ask you two questions to piggyback on what you mentioned. You mentioned a couple of things. One, the ability to practice within Toastmasters and getting that feedback. I want to ask you about this. But that's going to be my second question. My first question, you mentioned an icebreaker, and you know that I'm familiar with it, but I would love for you to explain to people maybe listening to this or seeing this for the first time. What is an icebreaker? What are you supposed to do in Toastmasters?
Icebreaker is very simple. Just talk about yourself, just show them who you are, and that's it. Very simple. And for a lot of people, even that's hard, because who finds it difficult just to talk about themselves, right? Where you were born, what did you study, what do you do for work, do you have siblings, who are your friends, what is your hobby? These are like, one should be able to talk about themselves, but mostly that icebreaker is really an icebreaker where people can open up without
Mm,
thinking so much. And when you talk about yourself, you just be you, and that's it. You don't have to worry about the preparation, the points what you have made, whether it's going in the right direction, what people are going to ask. So when you are being you, it's kind of cool. You stay calm and composed. You are not
mhm.
tense, you are not anxious. So yeah, that's icebreaker.
Awesome. Thank you for explaining that. And then my second question is and I was, as a, from my personal experience through Toastmasters, I've had this where my club, which I used to belong to a different club, they have multiple times encouraged me to bring in presentations that I'm doing for work or school or something, and actually do them as part of my learning, and they would give me feedback on that. Have you had the same experience?
Uh, I did a level once. I think it was back in innovative planning. I did something at work, but due to workplace restriction, the confidentiality and stuff,
Mhm.
I was not able to actually bring that to Toastmasters. But what I did was I prepared a presentation, like something similar. If I had to do it in a different setup, how will I handle, or how would I have handled it well? So that's the closest thing I was able to do, because
Gotcha.
really I can't just bring what I was doing at work. So no.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense. And it, depending on the level of confidentiality of the information you're presenting, if it's, if it doesn't have that information in it, obviously you would have been able to, perform it and get some feedback on it. And what a great opportunity for people to actually get that. Not many people get this opportunity where they can bring in things that they want to practice in Toastmasters, get feedback before they actually present it to somebody else,
Yes,
their
that's true.
bosses, for
That's
example.
true. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
and I thought that was a great idea. Awesome, awesome. All right, my next question is: so let's say you're meeting somebody, and they are, let's say they've heard of Toastmasters and they are unsure whether to go forward, join Toastmasters or not. What message would you give them? What advice would you give them to help them out?
Okay, first thing, if they are not sure, then they would have not been in that situation where they found Toastmasters already, and they are in that situation in a confusion, should they or should they not. S- they started that research or find a club or found a club, past or present. only because they wanted to improve themselves. So if you have come that much, why can't just give it a try? At least, enroll for one pathway, which is 5 levels and 3 speeches or 2 speeches per level, or one project. Why not give it a try? Because we are wasting so much of time, our free time, social media or TV, whatnot. Why not just spend 10 or 15 minutes per day? And this is not a waste of time. End of day, it is self improvement. Just give it a try, go for it. If you don't like it, you have an opportunity to just, walk out. It's not like you are stuck there. That's how I started. I initially told myself, okay, one pathway and then I'm out of there. And second pathway, I'm like, okay, odd number is not good. Let me complete it with even number. So I completed my second. And then I'm like, okay, fine. This is kind of interesting. Let me complete the third one too. And here I am. So you learn a lot actually. So there in every pathway, every level, it is not just you come speak something. You have to really prepare for that. If you are reviewing a book, you really have to read that book before you review something. If you are writing a blog for your pathways, then you really need to prepare something and then you actually write it, do a lot of proofreading for that, and then you publish it. Then your friends at Toastmasters, they read it, they give you the feedback. So you are kind of in a safe environment, in a safe nest where you can make mistakes without worrying what is going to be the consequences. So
Yeah.
this will be my point if someone really wants to
And
join.
that's an excellent point. Excellent point. The way you put it, because we do waste a lot of time on social media, on TV, and that time is definitely not wasted. And you mentioned that you're. I know I said this is going to be almost my last question, but you have a lot of great things you're saying today that I just keep going back to some of these points. But yeah, thank you so much for being open. You mentioned that you're not only giving speeches. What other roles can you do? Can you have in one meeting? I mean, not just you as a person, but other people in one meeting. What other roles do they serve?
They can serve as a Toastmaster for that day, where they can actually conduct or organize the meeting, like who are the speakers, who are going to be the evaluators, and table topics, who is going to come up with that, and the introduction and closure. So that's one role. You can be a speaker. If you're not prepared for your speech, you can evaluate someone on their speech, or you can be an evaluator of an evaluator, like who really did an evaluation, and you can tell them, okay, what did they miss or what did they do wrong, what could have been added in that evaluation. So that's one thing. And you can be a table topics master. So that's really kind of a cool thing, because it depends on who is going to be the table topic master for that entire meeting. And the topics which we get are really cool, different, season. So these are all the multiple roles, I would say.
Perfect. And I think there's also the eye counter and the timer, so you can get
Yes,
to service smaller roles as well, right?
yes,
And where
yes.
you can also support in everybody's speeches, but in a different capacity, so that you're not always the one talking, saying speeches. So everybody gets to serve at some sort of way and learn from each other. And I personally love that experience.
Even though the role of timer and the hour counter, those seems to be small, but what they are doing is really reflecting in your speech, and that doesn't end there. Because when a timer actually doing their job, in future, if you are presenting something or speaking somewhere, you know how to keep it short, because you are already trained for doing that without even seeing the clock or without even noticing anything. You
Yeah.
get trained well. So that's a huge role of a timer. And the hour counter, because they clearly note how many times you use the filler words like but, and stuffs like that. So I would say, even though those seems to be a small role, that plays a huge role in the meeting process.
And there you have it. You have heard 4 stories from 4 different Toastmaster members with inspiration, motivation. I hope their stories motivate you and inspire you to join the Toastmasters and grow as a leader and speaker.